Former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider, joins us now. In fact, I will ask you that, James. Do you think Angela Rayner as Deputy Prime Minister would be a vote winner for people out there?
I think Angela Rayner is a pretty talented politician. She's got a lot of personality. She's got decent values and decent politics. So I think so. Although, I mean, these reshuffles, people in Westminster get very excited about them and they think that that people in the real world notice, but actually they don't really. What most people will be focused on today is things like the school buildings are falling down rather than which Labour person is going to be speaking about it on the media.
Well, can I just ask your take on this phrase, levelling up, which Angela Rayner will be responsible for? I think it's one of the most ridiculous phrases in politics, and that's a tough competition, frankly. What do you make of it? Does it tell people what it means?
Not really. I mean, it's one of these Boris Johnsonisms, which we've still been left with. And I imagine that when Labour in government, they might change the department's name. But it's meant to be about regional inequality as well as local government and housing, I think, is the brief. Basically, Michael Gove's.
Yeah. So we're going to have these by-elections coming up now for Rishi Sunak. How do you think Labour is going to do in those?
Well, I mean, they should do very well. I mean, if you look at the polls, Labour are well ahead. It's clearly a government in complete disarray, can't get a grip on anything. And by-elections are generally a good time to kick the government and kick the incumbent. So, you know, Labour will be feeling pretty confident about them, I think.
What do you think about the Uturns we've had from Keir Starmer? There's going to be no rise in income tax, no wealth tax. The £28 billion Greens budget, that's all been ditched. The 10 pledges he was elected leader on have all effectively been dropped, James. Do you know what he stands for anymore?
No. Well, I mean, everything he's done is sort of consistent with saying to the establishment, don't worry, I won't change things very much. So one has to assume that those are his real values and what he really supports. But obviously, if you say one set of things and then within a very short period of time, you say, no, all of that's completely rubbish and anybody who wants that is wrong, then you can understand why people distrust you.
What does Keir Starmer have to do you think, to win over people who think he's a bit boring? I mean, you used to be the advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, regardless of what people thought of him. Everybody had an opinion on him, even if they liked him or didn't like him, whereas Keir Starmer leaves people feeling a bit meh, you know, not quite sure what he represents. I'm not quite sure what he brings to the country. He might just be a better bet than Rishi Sunak.
But I think that actually is Keir Starmer's strategy. It's to not really say or do very much and not have people think that much about him. And then just sort of anything standing next to a Conservative Party in disarray, 13 years of government, living standards falling, school buildings crumbling, our infrastructure falling apart, looks good in comparison. I think that maybe he would feel a bit happier if people didn't tell him he was boring all the time, but from his strategy point of view, which is about becoming Prime Minister, but not carrying through very much social change, it sort of makes sense as a strategy. And I say that as an analysis, not as a supporter of that. I mean, I obviously want social change. I think that we should be taxing the rich and putting money into public services and boosting people's pay and all the things that he stood for a leader on.
Can I ask you one question about Corbyn? Because you were, as Beth pointed out, you did work for him. Reports in the paper this weekend, he was out campaigning very hard. He's very unhappy about the fact child benefit there's going to be new restrictions now on child benefit, another U-turn under a Keir Starmer government. Is he, do you think, finished now, or is he potentially still going to run as an independent in Islington North, where he's been the MP for over 40 years? Or even perhaps run as potentially an independent as Mayor of London, because it looks to me like Sadiq Khan is looking very vulnerable.
I don't think Jeremy will ever retire from being politically active and campaigning on the issues that he always has done with great effect and great consistency over many, many years. I think there are lots of people in Islington North that want him to carry on being their MP, and there's quite a lot of anger that there are efforts to stop him being the MP from Keir Starmer for a kind of political attack against him. So I don't know exactly what he will do, but I think he's totally within his rights to run if he wants to. and he would stand a good chance of winning, I imagine, because he's very popular, and rightly so, in Islington North.
OK, James, always good to see you. James Schneider there, former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn.